committee. My name's Steve Osborne and I'm the chairman of the committee. As you're aware, the meeting is a virtual meeting, and it's been streamed live on YouTube. I'm being supported in the meeting by a senior officer who I refer to as Tony. That's Tony Gillett. He's one of our directors with a responsibility for planning. He will tell me now and again who requires to speak, and if I do anything wrong, I'm sure he'll put me right. You will hear a lady called Marina. She will be given the roll call in a little while, and so you know which members are present. I shall refer to them both by their Christian names. There are two planning officers, and again, I shall refer to them by their Christian names, Eamon and Catherine. And we have our legal man here. I'll call him our solicitor. That's the easy way out. So all those I shall refer to as I've just said. The councillors I shall refer to as councillors. There will be a roll call that takes place at the beginning of the meeting, so you'll be aware who is here and what they look like. Please mute your microphones when you're not speaking, because the background noise can get quite loud. Speakers will have 3 minutes to speak, and after that 3 minutes you'll hear Marina come in and say 3 minutes, Chairman, when I shall ask you to stop speaking. You're not going to clap, hiss, cheer or boo. I'm sure you're not. And at the end of each debate on the applications, the Marina will ask for members which way they vote, which way they want to vote, not on the application, but on the proposition on the application. So it might be proposed that we go with officers' advice, which will be perhaps to refuse it or approve it, whichever it is. So I think that's clear. Now a couple of bits on the agenda. First of all, the minutes. Is it your wish that when possible they be signed as a true and correct record, members? Put your hand in front of you if you're happy with that. Right, nobody against? Thank you. That's unanimous then, thank you.
Chairman.
Apologies for absence.
Chairman,
yes.
Can we just
Tony,
do the roll call for attendance before we go any further, please?
Yes, you can indeed. Marina, over to you.
Okay, councillors. Councillor Alan Chandler.
Present and able to hear and see.
Okay. Councillor Dabbs.
All working okay, thank you.
Councillor Harris.
Yes, thank you. All good.
Councillor Irving Swift.
Yes, all good, thank you, Marina.
Councillor James.
Yes, hear and see.
Councillor Longley.
Yes, all okay this end.
Councillor Matton.
Are you muted, Councillor Matton?
Yes, I gathered. Yes, I can see and hear and speak when I'm not muted. Thank you.
Councillor Parker.
Yes to both.
Councillor Ritchie.
Yes, all working.
Councillor Robertson.
Yes, and I'll speak when I'm spoken to.
Councillor Smith.
All good, thank you.
Councillor Wesley.
Sound and vision.
And Councillor Osborne.
Yes, both. Thank you, Marina. Apologies for absence.
Apologies received from councillors Rupert Frost and Daniel Cribbin, Chair.
Thank you. That makes a full house otherwise, I believe, doesn't it? Right, members' interest. Members, disclosable interest. Does any member have any disclosable interest? None indicated. Right, party whipping arrangements.
None, Chairman.
Thank you. That means to members of the public, we don't get together as groups to decide how we're going to vote on any application beforehand. There are no applications withdrawn, so we go straight across to the first application on the agenda, which is in Daventry. Over to you, Planning Officer. Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just sharing my screen now, so you should see the PowerPoint presentation. This is for a site at 1 Orchard Street in Daventry. It's for the construction of 1 pair of semi-detached dwellings. If I go to the site location plan, it's more on Western Avenue rather than Orchard Street, but the postcode, the address is Orchard Street. So the access will actually, or the proposed access is off Western Avenue here. As you can see, the existing property has got quite a large garden area to the side of the property. So we've got an application for a construction of a pair of semi-detached properties. As you can see, it's pretty much in line with the existing building line, slightly in front. There is a neighbour here at number 26 Coldstream Close. This is a bungalow, but it is also set on higher ground. This is a conservatory area here. Now, we have had concerns about highway safety due to the impact on sort of the road on Western Avenue by the town council. However, we have got comments from the highway authority who raised no objections. As you see by the site locate or the block plan here, there is an indication that there could be a parking space for the existing 1 Orchard Street. That's not part of this application process because it's not within the red line of the application, whereas these parking areas and this site are. Now, concerns have also been raised about impact on residential amenity. As you can see, the properties here are at an angle to the nearest neighbour, which is the bungalow to the north here. And although it's not within our 22 metres, it's 19 metres to the conservatory, it's considered to be acceptable given sort of the current circumstances. As a result of the proposal, a tree at the front of the site is proposed to be removed to allow for the access, which is this one, which appears to be on highway land outside the applicant's ownership. These are the pictures of the street scene. Here you've got the picture of the footpath which leads between the garden area, the existing garden area for 1 Orchard Street, and the allotment going on over to Coldstream Close. So again, you've got the allotments, and this is the rear garden. This is the bungalow with the conservatory I was highlighting earlier. This is the existing host dwelling, which is a pair of semi-detached properties. You can see there's a window here, which will be looking over a shared space, which will create an access between this property and plot 2, as shown on the application drawings. Again, this is the side garden area. As you can see, the properties are going to go in this area here. So therefore, the application is recommended for approval. It is suggested that an additional informative is put on just to relate to the existing sort of parking area. It is not allowed by this application, so it would require a separate planning application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Catherine. Marina, you'll have to do me a favour now. I didn't print off the speakers' names, but I know one of them is Daventry Town Councillor. Could you give me the names for speaking on this application, please?
Of course, it's Mrs. Tweedale.
Is that councillor?
The town council.
Mrs. Yeah, Mrs. Tweedale. Is there just one speaker? Just one speaker, Marina?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Right, Councillor Tweedale, then. You have 3 minutes to speak. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Tweedale from Daventry Town Council. Thank you. First and foremost, I'd like to say the Town Council is always really careful in the way that they respond to planning applications. We're always careful to provide constructive criticism and base our decisions on local knowledge. The Town Council has reviewed the amended application and reiterates its objection due to the detrimental impact on highway safety, with proposed vehicular access direct from Western Avenue, which does not have direct access to the highway for any dwelling along its length. The Town Council also raised concerns with the documentation on the planning portal. In particular, the report prepared by Barry Wayne Planning, which advised that vehicular access direct from Drayton Way has been agreed with the Highway Authority. Drayton Way is nowhere near the proposed development. The vehicle access and egress would be direct onto Western Avenue. Western Avenue, as we know, is busy at all times, and it frequently has speed cameras along its stretch due to speeding concerns and road safety concerns along Western Avenue. At no point, highways, we understand, we're in process of considering installing a refuge area near the point of this application, but this hasn't been mentioned at all in the highways report. And also in this area, there is obscured visibility due to the slope of the land. Not so long ago, 2016, there was a pedestrian that was actually killed at this crossing into Orchard Street. Thank you. That's all I have to say on this report.
Thank you, Councillor Dreidel. Right, local member for Drayton will be Councillor Dabbs. Councillor Dabbs, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And thank you for your comments, Councillor Tweedale. I'll just touch first of all on the highways. I thought I'll have a little drive down Western Avenue just a few days ago, just to check out the sight lines, just to make sure that I'm really understanding this. And I would imagine that the problem down Western Avenue is exactly the same problems I face outside my street, my road, which is Ashby Road. You've got a slope, you've got what appears to be quite a wide road. I should imagine everybody is speeding down it at greater than 30 miles an hour. Otherwise, my personal opinion is I don't think the road is actually that busy, and I wouldn't actually see it as that dangerous if people do actually exit their properties directly out onto Western Avenue. And I have to point out, I don't agree with Councillor Tweedale. If you go right to the northern end of Western Avenue on the western side, which is basically just a bit further down the road from Orchard Street, there are several properties that all open out directly. I know there's a bit of land and there's a bit of parking space and so on, but they all open out directly onto Western Avenue. And there are some houses on the other side who've put their own entrances in, which are not proper entrances. But again, they have a good view. So I'm not sure that it is exactly terribly dangerous, but the danger is always increased by traffic that is not paying attention to the speed limit. And with the slope of the land, the downward slope, they probably would tend to go over the 30 miles an hour, just as they do on my road, if you don't drive it properly with care and attention. But moving on from that, my concern with this, and we've seen it on the plans, is the design of the houses, particularly where the front doors are placed. Now, the existing houses, there's not very many of them, there's about 3 or 4 on the entrance to Orchard Street. They're all the same. Some are rendered, some are not rendered, but the basic design of the house is exactly the same. I wouldn't say that they're particularly merit-worthy in terms of their design, but there is a consistency of the design. And where we have it, and I'll just make sure I've got the right word, the new plans, the front doors are towards the middle of the properties. If you can see there, that you can see the existing one right at the top of that plan there. The door is on the outside, is on the edge. So it's on the edge, and it's basically as far apart as they possibly can be in the semi-detached dwelling. On the new one, they're in the middle. And you can also see that the windows on the first floor are different. So for those reasons, I'm not convinced that this is a good development. If we're going to go for planning reasons, policy EMV10 is not complied with. And the key word on that, and it's on page 15 of our document pack, keyword is integrate. So that house, I feel, that new development does not integrate with the street scene. Now, I wouldn't necessarily want to just turn down the application flat, because I don't really have any major objection to it, but I would want that design feature taken care of, and I wanted to be in keeping with the existing ones. So my recommendation would be, if we could defer, that would be acceptable to me, so we get some proper plans drawn up that are in keeping. Otherwise, I'll have to vote against this one. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Right, Tony, have you got a list of speakers yet?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor James and Councillor Wesley.
Okay. Okay, Councillor James, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a revised application after certain amendments.
You're frozen.
You got it?
He didn't freeze for me, Chair.
Right. It's I think it's my end. Yeah, my internet connection is unstable. Yes, it's my end. So I do beg your pardon, Councillor James. Can you carry on?
Yeah, it is a revised application and modifications have been made, noticeably the height of this building. It ticks all the boxes, both in terms of its mass, its form, the spacing between dwellings and highways. They're satisfied, and of course height, which the revised application put right. So I can't see any reason for refusing this application, and therefore I'd be quite happy to propose that we go along with officer's advice in this case.
Thank you, Councillor James. Do you have a seconder? I can see Councillor Robertson waving his hand. If you want to second, Councillor Robertson, would you like to speak now?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I do second it, and basically, I take note of the design aspects, but I don't think they're detrimental. The size of the properties is consistent, and the doors being more centrally located rather than on the outside, I think is a good thing rather than a bad one. I've got nothing much else to say except that except I go along with seconding the proposer and supporting advice.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Wesley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm not happy with the access onto this road either. I think it's just I think it's a difficult place, and I think it's unneeded. And I do think it's prone to danger, and I think highways have been a little bit lax in basically waving it through. Yeah, I'm not happy with it. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Councillor Wesley. Over to you, Tony. Any more speakers, please?
None indicated, Chairman.
Right. If nobody else wishes to speak, well, if they do wish to speak, you better indicate now, because I'm going to go to the vote. Right, we have a proposal that the application be approved, along with officer's advice, which has been seconded. All those in favour, go to a roll call. Marina.
Councillor Chandler.
For.
Councillor Dabbs.
Against.
Councillor Harris.
Against.
Councillor Irving Swift.
For.
Councillor James.
For.
Councillor Longley.
For.
Councillor Matton.
For.
Councillor Parker.
For.
Councillor Ritchie.
Sorry, forgot to mute there. Against.
Councillor Robertson.
For.
Councillor Smith.
Against.
Councillor Wesley.
Against.
Chairman, that's 7 in favour and 5 against.
The application is approved then. Thank you. Right. He says with his papers. We go on to the next application, which again is in Daventry. This one is you, I think, this time, Eamon.
Thanks, Chairman. Just hold a second. I'll try and call up the screen save.
Yep.
Oops. It's not that one. Must be that one. Yeah. Members see that?
Yes.
Again, Chairman, just for members' purposes, the site is an existing industrial unit in a long-established industrial estate just to the north of Daventry town. Access to the site is off the main road via a cul-de-sac, and it's been used for many years. As such, reasonably successful business is now proposing to extend. So by way of comparison with the two layouts, this is the existing layout, and the extension is in this area here, with proposed additional parking in this area and rearrangement of parking there. So just flicking between the two, you can see the difference. So this is the new extension projecting to the side of the existing unit. New additional parking provided along the frontage, and access to the service yard is still maintained in this area and to the rear. You'll note from the later representations we received some revised drawings which really involve some minimal alterations in terms of reducing this element and this element to create a wee bit more space for the unit to operate its largest vehicle in and out. They have provided swept path drawings to show that. In elevational terms, really the proposed extensions are in keeping with the existing building. So in planning terms, the proposal is in accordance with policy. There are objections from the Highway Authority, concerns about the lack of parking, etc. But you'll see from the report that we've indicated that due to the split shift, etc., it's the sustainable location of the unit. Our view is that those objections from the Highway Authority could not be sustained as a reason for refusing the application, and accordingly we recommend the application be approved, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Right, it's in Abbey North, so two local members. Councillor Ritchie, you go first.
Chairman?
Yes, sorry.
Sorry,
oh,
you
a
have
speaker.
two speakers
Oh,
on this item.
Yes, I should have done my speakers list. Right.
Councillor Tweedale, Councillor Tweedale for the Town Council, and Mr. Dasson Barber, the applicant.
Mr. Can you say his name again?
Dasson Barber.
Dasson Barber. Okay. I do apologise for not printing this off beforehand. Right, Councillor Tweedale, well, you have 3 minutes. Over to you.
Chair, the Town Council have no objection to this application, so we have no comments.
Okay.
We agree to go with the planning officer's advice on this. Thank you.
Thank you. That was nice and short and sweet. Right, Mr. Dasson Barber. I hope I pronounced your name right, sir. I do apologise for not printing the names off beforehand. Over to you, sir.
No problem. Hopefully you can hear me. Yeah, my name is Elliot Dasson Barber. I'm the technical director at JRM. Just to give you some background, we are a privately owned engineering business that's been in Daventry for about 8 years now. As I say, it's a privately run company, and environmental sustainability is something that's been very important to us. So one of the reasons driving this extension application is part of a bigger project to develop a centre of excellence for engineering in Daventry. There will be a number of functions taking place in the building. It's going to be a single place of occupancy for us. Currently, we have 3 buildings in spread over Daventry and Bicester, and so we want to bring the whole facility into one location where we're going to conduct all of our business. Currently, we're employing around 55 people, and we look to grow that to 60 people with the development of this site. Now, yes, we are expanding and we are looking to grow the site, but we're looking to mitigate our carbon footprint significantly by installing a 300 kilowatt solar farm on top of the building. And as one of the other councillors mentioned, we're also and have already implemented a working from home policy, which will mean that we will never have more than 30 people on site at any one time. And that's not only driven by the space requirement, but driven by our desire to reduce our carbon footprint. So hopefully that gives you some background into our application. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now we go to Councillor Ritchie then, as one of the 2 local members.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's unfortunate that there's not more space for parking and turning lorries and things like that. If this were just another bloody warehouse in Daventry, these things would concern me. But it strikes me that this is the sort of company that we want to have in Daventry. That might not qualify strictly as a planning reason, but for these reasons, I think that this makes perfect sense. It's got my full backing. I'm happy to recommend that we go with officer's advice.
Thank you. That's a proposition, is it, Councillor Ritchie?
It is. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'll go to the. Do we have a seconder? I'm going to take Councillor James because he indicated he is a local member anyway. So, Councillor James, you wish to speak?
Yeah.
Over to you then.
Can you hear me? Yes.
We can now.
Yes, this is an interesting application. And all I can say about this is what I've read in the SEMLET handout that was sent to councillors a couple of weeks ago. The idea is to create a centre of excellence for low carbon automotive technologies. It presses all the right buttons as far as the site and the proposed building extension is concerned, and brings valuable jobs to Daventry and helps our local economy. So I'm quite happy with this one and only too willing to second it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Tony, are there any more speakers?
Councillor Dabbs, Chairman.
All right, Councillor Dabbs.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I don't really have any problems with this application. I echo both of what Councillor James and Councillor Ritchie have just said. We need good jobs like this of high skills being brought into the town, not the warehousing jobs of low skills if we get the choice. Only question I've got is I didn't see any reference to any electric car charging points. Don't know whether they've been installed, whether they're coming in with this application. And I do note the green credentials, if you can call it that, of the applicant. And I welcome huge arrays of solar panels being put on industrial buildings. I think that's a most sensible idea. Why can't everybody do it? But there was no mention, but I think the applicant has nodded his head to say there are car charging points, which is brilliant, and I will leave it at that, and I'm happy to vote for this as well.
Thank you. Eamon, can you confirm there are charging points?
I believe the layout indicates 2 charging points, Chairman.
Yeah, again, I'm getting nods, so yes. Okay. We have a proposal on the application be approved, which has been seconded. Over to you, Marina, for the roll call.
Councillor Chandler.
4.
Councillor Dabbs.
4.
Councillor Harris.
4.
Councillor Irving Swift.
4.
Councillor James.
4.
Councillor Longley.
4.
Councillor Matton.
4.
Councillor Parker.
4.
Councillor Ritchie.
4.
Councillor Robertson.
4.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Councillor Wesley.
4.
Carried unanimously, Chair.
Thank you. It is carried unanimously. Right, we go to the third application. And should I indeed say it's the last one of the
Point of order, please, Chair.
Yes.
Point of order. Now, my understanding, if I may speak here, is that we're all supposed to come to these meetings with an open mind, no prejudices to the issues. So I'm questioning here why the Economic Regeneration and Employment Portfolio holder has not withdrawn from the vote. He's promoted this site, this scheme, over many months in the chamber and outside. Indeed, I'll name him personally, Councillor James, it's you. You have your picture on Daventry District Council's website on the site of this application. Why are you not withdrawing from the vote? Having said that, I'm very happy for you to speak because I think you'll probably have lots of applicable knowledge here, but I don't think you, in all clear conscience, can be voting for this without showing that you have a certain bias.
Right. Well, before we go to Councillor James, I shall go to our legal man, as I've called him, our solicitor. You've heard the point posed there by Councillor Dabbs. What is your opinion on it, sir? We can't hear you. You're muted. That's it.
Apologies for that. Yes, the spacebar wasn't working to unmute me. Councillor Dabbs, I hear what you're saying. As you'll appreciate with all councillors, it's a matter for a personal decision as to whether or not they believe that they are predisposed as to the determination of this matter. I'm not fully aware of how Councillor James is fully linked to this site, so it is obviously a matter for the Councillor James to determine, in so much that if Councillor James was a promoter for the original site, etc., but is able to be here with an open mind to consider the proposition before the committee today, then I see that that is a matter for him to be able to, perhaps in this instance, openly express his position as to whether he feels that he is predisposed to determining this, or whether or not he is of an open mind.
Thank you, sir. Councillor James.
Well, all I can say, Chairman, is that if that is the case, one could rule out, not the case that I can speak, then one could rule out most people from the planning committee at any meeting, particularly those who have prepared, been involved with parish councils, with neighbourhood development plans, and so on and so forth. I haven't offered any opinion on this application. In fact, I hadn't even read the details of this application until last weekend, when they arrived in the post, say Friday morning or Saturday morning. You know, I have an interest in my portfolio role in regenerating those areas that require regeneration, and in promoting employment, and improving and endeavouring to obtain a thriving economy. So you could rule me out on that ground alone, if that were the case. But no one has complained in the entire, I think I've sat on this planning committee now 6 out of the 7 years, or all 7 years probably, that I've been on the council. And no one has brought this up before. But I am well aware that Councillor Dabbs and maybe one or two of his colleagues have an interest in politicising things ahead of a forthcoming election in May of next year. That's all I can...
Well, we won't... Let's be fair. Any person could have brought that up, Councillor James. I'm going back to our legal man because he has his hand raised.
Thank you. I would second your view there that it's not the position to raise political points. It is more really where Councillor James, if you are happy to simply state for the record that you're not predetermined on this application and you are here with an open mind, then in that front, it would deem you appropriate to make a decision on this matter before the committee. You can just confirm that you have not predetermined your position.
That I have an open mind? Yes.
Right. If you're happy to state that, that will be recorded in the minutes. Thank you. Right. Over to you then, Eamon, to present the report.
Thanks, Chairman. I'll attempt to share the screen again. I think that's the right one, isn't it?
Yeah, you're getting good, Eamon.
Oh, a bit of practice, Chairman, bit of practice. This is, as the slide indicates, this is what's called a Section 73 application to vary a condition of a previous approval granted by the Council for the Innovation Centre at Charwelton. For those members, that Innovation Centre sits on the main A361, just as you enter Charwelton on the right-hand side, driving from Daventry. And by way of background, clearly the Innovation Centre was approved in connection with the reuse of the tunnel as a research facility. So effectively, it's a complementary building, complementing the uses and activities that are directly related to the tunnel itself. In granting that permission, there was a specific condition that's obviously sought to be varied now, which tied occupation of this unit to those uses that are ancillary or have a connection with the R&D development and use of the tunnel. What the applicants, the building itself is now pretty much substantially complete. It is moving quite an advanced stage. But what the applicants have said in making the submission is that due to the recent pandemic, etc., that has created a very difficult market for the automotive industry. And as a result, they are having, they need to sort of broaden the appeal of the occupation of this building for a temporary period, whilst the effects of the impact of the COVID pandemic sort of play out, as it were. But in letting the building out to other uses, not necessarily tied to the facility or on site, it would free up or create income which would help deliver the remainder of the site. I note we have got a speaker, the applicant, who will no doubt go into that in much more detail. In short, in planning terms, what we as officers say is that we have a substantially complete building whose use was restricted under the condition of the original permission. But given the current conditions and given the material considerations put forward by the applicant, we are minded to agree a temporary relaxation of that condition in the particular circumstances in order to secure the delivery of not only this building, but also the remainder of the site that was subject to the previous applications. And accordingly, we were recommending, Chairman, the variation of the condition. I should also point out, in terms of the conditions listed, because this is a Section 73 application, condition 1 that's set out in your papers should actually reflect the date of the original permission and not the date that you make this decision. But you'll see further down at condition 3 that is going to be amended, that there is a time limit imposed there in terms of the temporary occupation of alternative uses within the site and the nature of those uses, Chairman. Thanks. Nothing else to add at this stage.
Thank you, Eamon. Marina, the speaker's name is?
Rob Lewis.
Sorry, could you say it again?
It's Rob Lewis, Chairman.
Lewis?
Yes, Chairman.
Right. Okay, Mr. Lewis, you have 3 minutes from now, please, if you wish to speak.
Thank you. I thought it would be useful to give a bit of background and explanation. So apologies if some of this is not relevant, but hopefully it is. So the project to date, we're just passing the £10 million spend on the project in total, the building outside the tunnel and the innovation centre. We have done some initial tests. We've laid 400 metres of tarmac in the tunnel, and our Japanese car maker has tested on that and is about to invest £3 million in buying some days in the tunnel and £2.5 million in construction. So we're on track. COVID slowed construction a little bit, but only a few weeks. So the project as a whole is going well. Then we look at the innovation centre and we look at COVID. And the problem as we see it at the moment is that small engineering techie companies like ours are risk adverse. They're keeping their cash, they're not making decisions they don't have to, and the chances of getting people to sign medium long-term leases is quite small. So our vision for this innovation centre is 100% to fill it with engineering companies doing testing in the tunnel. That is unchanged. But the problem we face right now is we've got two choices. We either press on and take a risk, can we lease these spaces, or we mothball it. At the moment, the building will be completed to wind tight, watertight, landscaped, and the hoarding moved back, so the front of the site tidied up. That'll happen in the next few weeks. And then we've got the decision, and it's a confidence decision. Do we press on, complete the innovation centre, or at least downstairs, and look to occupy it, or do we pause? And the reason for this application is is really twofold. It will help us make that decision and give us some confidence that we've got some elbow room to put other people in there if we can't fill the space. For sure, given a flat choice between an engineer and an accountant, engineer every day, but I want to make sure that we've got some scope to pay the bills in these challenging times. But the other reason is that I think at the moment we need to all be a bit brave and press on with our investments and not crawl into a cave because of COVID. And I think as a result of COVID, there is a demand for flexible working space, flexible meeting rooms, and somewhere more local that can be used. So that's my explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Marina, are there other speakers?
No, Chair.
Okay, so the only speaker. There's no local member that's on this committee. So members, could you indicate to Tony if you'd like to speak on it, please? Tony, do you have any names?
Yes, Chairman, I've got 4 members who've indicated, Councillor Wesley, Councillor Smith, Councillor Robertson and Councillor Dabbs.
Robertson and Dabbs. Okay. Councillor Wesley then, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, great sympathies with the developers of this site. Went past it the other day. I think it's looking really, really good, and yeah, it's a really, really nice site. So yes, I've got sympathies. The only thing that I would ask is how do we just a little bit of information for myself, really? How do we police the use of the building going forward? I mean, if we do say yes to this, for whatever reason, does that mean it's sort of by default in perpetuity? So just a clarification on that for me, but I'm pretty much in favour of it anyway.
Okay. Eamon, do you want to comment?
Good question. We're not a police force, but there are conditions imposed on the use of the building, which are set out at paragraph 3. So in effect, those new or alternative users have occupation for 2 years. After that, they would be in breach of the conditions, in which case, if it was brought to the attention of the local planning authority, condition notice could be served requiring vacation, etc. But that would be very much something that would have to be considered at that time. Alternatively, and again, I've always said this before in previous planning committees, we can't look into the future. We don't have the ability to gaze into the future. You determine the application as it is at the moment. But there is a scenario where you could have an application to further vary the condition, which the council will have to consider on its merits at that particular time.
Thank you, Eamon. Right, Councillor Smith, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. Broadly, I'm in favour of this. Clearly, we're in exceptional times, and it would be well, any sensible businessman is going to take contingency, and so to look ahead, I think yes, a couple of years. I really don't have an objection. As has been indicated, their preference is always going to be for related businesses anyway. So this has my support on this occasion.
Thank you. Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Eamon, did I hear you correctly when I thought I heard you say that this application will be backdated to 17th of May 2019? Or rather, it will run from 2019.
Again, through you, Chairman, it's a matter of practice that a Section 73 application cannot further extend the time limit for implementation of the application. Clearly, from the photographs, the development has commenced, so it's really an academic question. But we're not giving them a further 3 years to implement the application. So it's a tidying up exercise in effect.
Now, what I was querying was whether or not the 2-year period is going to end in May 2021, which is only 6 months away now.
Again, through you, Chairman, the condition quite clearly states 2022. That's set out in the report.
So it will continue beyond the actual 2-year date. That was the query I had. And you've answered it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Dabbs.
Thank you, Chair. I think, unlike some of the members of this committee, I wasn't actually around at any of the decisions made on this site, either on the Innovation Centre or the original plans. I could have been, but I was not available in 2019. And I can see from reading all the background papers and everything that's online that this has been a very long and a very controversial scheme. You know, we've got the original decision in 2019 to establish the Innovation Centre, and then the original plans going back further into 2017. Now, I'm somewhat concerned about the way that the process goes. Is you take something down out of your plans because people don't like it, you leave it a couple of years, and then you slot something back in that may be acceptable, and it gets through. So to be more explicit on that, the original Innovation Centre was withdrawn and the planning in 2017 was approved. So later we get an application for this revised centre, and we have it approved. So I think that's not the best state of affairs to have. I'm assuming that all members did actually consider at the outset of this project the dangers of what would happen if the project failed, in that you would end up with a mini industrial estate on the edge of a village, which in normal circumstances you would not have allowed, it being totally outside the confines of the village, not in the right place, probably 101 reasons. So we've got here an application that's been approved under what I would consider to be special or very exceptional circumstances. And I see that the choice that we have here, or the choice that the applicant has, is that he's got a building that he either fully completes and rents out, or he doesn't somehow fully complete. But I'm concerned about whether this is actually ever going to work in terms of renting the property out to third parties. I mean, I just quote from the actual applicant's words himself. The applicant cites the impact of COVID on working practices, with many staff working from home and companies downsizing their office space or not looking to relocate. So I question where the demand for new office space is going to come from in a small village, especially one which you might say is a little bit remote. So I'm not sure whether this is actually related to planning, or whether it's more like a budget effort in terms of, you know, how viable is my project? I need to get some more income. But there's very little on financing in the reports. I did find something that stated that funding will have to be spent by March 21, so March next year. So I come to my questions now. So perhaps if the planning officer may be able to answer these. What happens to funding if the building is not finished? If the building is finished, I assume that rates will follow. If you could just confirm what the basis of charging rates on an empty building or incomplete building would be, that would be quite helpful. And I just wonder if it's, you know, this is a dilemma for the applicant. If they finish, they can try and rent it, but they'd have to pay rates, or if they don't finish it, would they lose the funding? So I'm not sure what the status of that is and whether there are actually answers that the officer has for that. So I think in summary, we've got a bit of information missing as to the financial viability of things going forward. But my greatest concern is that if we grant this amendment, what other ones will follow on? And will we all regret it in the future when we have some industrial estate on the outside of a village? One where I can see from all the comments that many of the villagers are very concerned and they have objected. I just wonder whether this isn't one instance where perhaps we should listen to the local people and we should vote accordingly. But that's my piece. If the officer could help me with my inquiries, I'd be grateful. Many thanks.
Thank you, Eamon.
Again, Chairman, yes, for those who know the history of the site, there have been a lot of objections from local residents and Charlton Parish meeting, and those continue. Indeed, the parish meeting are still opposed to the application, and under the late representations, you'll see that residents are still opposed to the application. It's for members to make a decision on whether or not you're happy to vary that condition. As regards the specific questions asked by Councillor Dabbs, both funding and rates sit outside my remit, so I'm not in a position to advise you on what happens in the event that the developer doesn't or does progress with the application. What he is asking you is to consider a variation of a planning condition. If the developer decides he mothballs the site, then you have a substantially complete building that's lying empty on the edge of a village. What do you do with it? If the developer decides to progress with the application without varying the condition, then hopefully you will have a completed building, but may well lie empty. And after marketing, whatever, the applicant may come back to you and say, well, I've done all this marketing, I can't get a user who complies with the condition. Can you vary it? And you would have to be in the same position of considering whether or not to vary the condition. So what we're faced with, I think it's pretty unprecedented circumstances. You've heard that phrase many a time. And the applicant is asking the authority to amend that condition on a temporary basis in order to assist delivering the wider project, the project that was considered to be acceptable because of the exceptional circumstances that applied at the time of that decision, which namely is the reuse of the tunnel for research and development associated with the automotive industry. So hopefully that's answered your question, but nothing further to add, Chairman.
Thank you, Eamon. Tony, speakers?
Councillor Ritchie, Chairman.
Councillor Ritchie, you may speak.
Thank you. Can I apologise for having stopped my video? Like you, Chair, I have got messages saying I have an unstable connection and hope that on sound only it will keep going. I wanted to start with a question. Page 35, the penultimate paragraph, it talks about them wanting to permit the short-term occupations of all of the building. Do we have any view at the moment as to what percentage of the building is likely to be being used for activities related to the tunnel? And what percentage would be things that are entirely unconnected?
Through you,
Eamon,
Chairman,
do you want to answer?
No, I don't. But the idea of seeking the variation is to provide the flexibility to the applicant and not to be restricted solely to uses connected with the automotive research and development. It's seeking flexibility in how the building's occupied.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Ritchie?
Unfortunately, with my connection, I didn't fully hear of it, but I think I got the gist of it. And I appreciate that perhaps it's not a question that the applicant can answer at the moment. I'm concerned too.
Yeah, you've gone, Councillor Ritchie. Do you want to try again?
Put on the practice. In 2 years' time, companies may be using the very same.
You've gone again. Councillor Ritchie, your connection is going in and out. We're only hearing parts of your words.
Things are actually not. Well, hello.
Well, I'll tell you what, Councillor Ritchie, if you can hear me, we'll leave you for the time being and see if your connection gets better, and we'll take another speaker. Okay, can you hear that? Okay. Any more speakers, Tony?
Councillor Longley, Chairman.
Right, Councillor Longley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Listen very carefully to the discussion tonight, and that's a very substantial investment has been made by a number of people and a number of companies. And my view is that we are in exceptional circumstances, and we, as a council, should do everything that we possibly can to support people and enterprises such as this. So I'm going to make the proposition that we go with with the officer's advice. I think Eamon has summed it up extremely well. And thank you to the speaker, Rob Lewis, for coming along. First time I've heard you speak, so that's very interesting. So that's my proposition, Chairman.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Matten, you have your hand up. You wish to second?
Yes, I would like to second, please. I agree with everything that Councillor Longley just said, and I believe we should be supporting these people in these unprecedented times. It's a wonderful project, and congratulations to them. I second that proposal.
Thank you. Before I go back to Councillor Ritchie, are there any more speakers, Tony?
None indicated, Chairman.
Okay. Councillor Ritchie, can you hear me? I'll try again. Councillor Ritchie, can you hear me?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah,
I can.
You're still cutting off, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Try a sentence, and if it's no good, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it. So try again.
Okay. Well, just very briefly, you'll gather that I have a lot of reservations about this project. Clearly, it doesn't seem to match with the glowing reports that were made several years ago when planning permission and whether we're of having what was effectively an industrial estate on the edge of their village, and it looks like that is what we are heading for. It may be, as the planning officers have suggested, that there is no alternative to that now that the building has been substantially built. But I'm not particularly happy with the proposal without there being a much clearer way out at the end of the 2 years to ensure that this gets back to being a project that is based on the tunnel.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. We did hear 99% of that. So just I keep hearing industrial estate, Eamon. Put me right. There is only one building there, isn't there?
Through you, Chairman, I'll just share the screen again. No, not that screen. I'll share the other screen. There we go. Yeah, so this is the Innovation Centre, the building in question. These are the other buildings that were the subject of the earlier application. And further up here towards the tunnel entrance, there is another building that has actually been physically constructed, which effectively provides privacy to those, as I understand it, industrial espionage and everything else. People want to have privacy when they test their vehicles. So there's a building up here physically provided on site that allows you to drive onto the site. These would be used by various companies who would be using the tunnel on a regular basis. Now they could take their vehicle up to the existing building, open the tunnel and drive up and down, whatever they do in there, to sort of test out in terms of aerodynamics. So this building very much is the building that's the subject of this application. Yeah, it is very much seen as sort of an ancillary, a complementary use to the primary function of the site. So that was the basis upon which it was given permission, obviously with the condition attached to it. What the applicant is saying is variation provides a bit of flexibility to hopefully allow them to create income to hopefully deliver the remainder of these buildings and allow for the continued use of the tunnel.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Chairman.
Any more speakers, Tony? If not, we go to the vote.
Chairman, Councillor Matten has his hand up.
Councillor Matten,
yes,
over to you.
And I seconded this, and I just wanted to make it clear that I seconded this on the understanding that it is for a period of 2 years, and our speaker has actually said it's only for 2 years, and I trust that if an extension were to be sought to that 2 years, it would come before us again, and I would like it just to be for 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we have a proposal that the application be approved as per officer's advice, which has been seconded. Over to you, Marina, for the roll call.
Councillor Chandler.
For.
Councillor Dabbs.
Against.
Councillor Harris.
For.
Councillor Irving Swift.
For.
Councillor James.
For.
Councillor Longley.
For.
Councillor Matton.
For.
Councillor Parker.
For.
Councillor Ritchie.
Abstain.
Councillor Robertson.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Wesley.
For.
10 in favour, 1 against and 1 abstention, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Marina. The application is approved. Well, that is it, gentlemen, ladies. That completes the 3 for tonight. So you'll have a very good night, either eating your meal,